Physical media is still the primary source of content that I view here in my home theater. Whether that's TV shows or movies, I typically will watch them on a physical disc-based format. Every once in a while, I will stream a TV show or I will stream a movie from a streaming service, but by and large, it's usually always disc-based content. And because of that, I wanted a very high-quality, reliable Blu-ray player as my daily driver player. And with that in mind, here today, I'm going to talk to you about a true endgame level Blu-ray player, at least in my opinion, for my setup, that I don't think a lot of people out in the YouTube community and just in the home theater space really know about. Because honestly, I didn't know about it until I found it on Shop Goodwill and ended up purchasing it. And that Blu-ray player is what I'm going to hold up right now. This is the Cambridge Audio 752 BD Blu-ray player. And I'm going to tell you in this video why I think this player is such a good quality Blu-ray player if you can find it at a reasonable price, because they don't come up very often online. And so if you want to hear my thoughts and opinions about the Cambridge Audio 752 BD Blu-ray player, then stay tuned. To start this video off, I want to bring up a different Blu-ray player first, and that is the Oppo BDP 105 Blu-ray player, which even today in 2025, that player is still highly regarded and really holds a lot of value in home theater circles as being a premier Blu-ray player that is still sought after even today. And when you find those online, especially in working condition, they still command usually several hundreds of dollars in price tag because they are so highly sought after in the community. And I bring that up because here today I'm talking about the Cambridge Audio 752 BD. And that player at its core is like 95 to 99% the same exact Blu-ray player as the Oppo BDP 105. Now, to talk about the Cambridge Audio player, it was first debuted back in 2013. So at the time of this video, that's about 12 years ago when it first came out. But it is a solidly built player, and it had a pretty commanding price tag at the time because it retailed for $1,300 when it first came out in 2013. And so that put it right up at the very tip top of physical media players at that time. And it shows it too when you look at the physical player itself. It's heavy. It weighs somewhere around 11, 12 pounds. It's a pretty bulky player. It's all metal. It has premium quality connections on there. It has a brushed kind of aluminum look to it. It just looks and feels like a quality player. Now, the Cambridge Audio player, much like the Oppo, is a universal disc player. So it can play almost any physical media disc that you have in your collection, except for 4K UHD. It can't do that, but it can play any other form of disc-based media for the most part. It can play burned discs, burned DVDs, burned CDs. It can play DVDs. It can play Blu-rays, 3D Blu-rays. It can also do super audio CDs as well, and a bunch of other different stuff. There's a whole list online you can look up to actually see all the physical media that it plays. So it can do pretty much anything except for the 4K UHDs. You would still need a dedicated 4K player for that, which for me here in my home theater, I do have a Panasonic UB420 that I use almost exclusively for 4K discs. Any other disc-based media I watch here in my home theater is on this Cambridge Audio player. Now, I bought this Cambridge Audio player at the time of recording about 6-7 months ago, give or take. It was at the very end of last summer, very early last fall when I picked it up. And I found it on Shop Goodwill. I paid $125 for it, and that included the actual costs of the auction on Shop Goodwill, plus the shipping and the tax that went on there. It was about $125. And that is the most money I've ever paid for a disc-based media player. And honestly, I was a little on the fence about doing that. But for $125, honestly, after doing some research, I felt it was a good deal to pick it up for that price because these Cambridge audio players and the Oppo BDP 105s, when they are available in working condition on the secondhand market, such as like eBay and different places, generally run for several hundreds of dollars. Now, I did say that this player is like 95% the same player as the Oppo BDP 105. There's a few minor differences that, kind of take place there, like the branding and the badge that's on there. A few little aesthetic designs are changed, just because it's a Cambridge audio product instead of an Oppo product. And that doesn't really, matter all that much, at least to me. The big difference, and really the only significant difference in terms of components on this player versus the Oppo player, is that this player uses Wolfson DACs for its audio processing capabilities, which when I was reading reviews back from 2013 and just some other little forum posts and things of the time when this came out, these Wolfson DACs are much higher quality than the DACs in the Oppo, at least according to the different reviews that I read and the different forum posts that I read. And so that is really the only major difference between the two. Otherwise, all the video processing, all the connections, everything that's on there is pretty much the same across the board between the two players. Now, when talking about connections, if we look at the back panel of this player, you will see that it has two HDMI connections that are outputs. So that is one that does audio and video, and one that does audio only. So you could separate them and send one directly to your video source and then a second HDMI connection to the actual audio source, like a receiver or processor. It also has digital coax audio out on it, so you can send digital audio straight to your receiver or your processor. It has RCA connections, not only a 7.1 channel RCA connection for 7-channel direct output for audio for surround sound, it also has a stereo left and right RCA connection. But then one thing you may notice on here that looks a little bit weird is that it has an HDMI input. Now, the reason this has that on there is because this could be used kind of as a media hub kind of setup, where you could take another HDMI compatible device, like I've seen in other older forum posts, people would take like a PlayStation or an Xbox, or maybe even like a streaming device, like an Apple TV or a Fire Stick, and connect it directly to this player and allow this player to use its upscaling video processing and audio capabilities to kind of upscale and process the image and the audio coming out of another HDMI device. Now, to segue from that into the video aspect of this player is not 4K native, so you cannot play 4K UHD discs on it, but it does have a 4K upscaling capability. So if you have a 4K native projector or TV that you could hook this up to, it will upscale any 1080p or any standard definition content to 4K if you go into the menu system and just select that. Because I don't have a 4K native projector here in my home theater, I have it set to 1080p. But to be honest, the 1080p quality that the picture puts out on here is actually really good. Now, of course, there are some other factors at play with that. The processor you have, the projector or TV it's running into, or an AV receiver if you have it hooked into that. There's a lot of factors that are going to go into play with this that are going to like kind of manipulate the image a little bit. But at least for my setup, with this player hooked into my Emotiva processor, and then everything from that processor out to either my Sim2 Miko or my Sim2 HT5000, it's really clear, really deep in terms of color on there. And it does a really good job upscaling. So anytime you see content here on my channel where I show little cut-ins of videos on here over the last few months, 6 months, whatever, unless it's a dedicated 4K disc where I have to use my UB420, everything else that's on here gets run through my Cambridge Audio, because that is my everyday daily driver universal media player. And the image quality is really, really good, and it pairs really nicely with my two projectors here. And so because of that, I highly recommend finding one of these players if you can get it at a reasonable price, because this is an extremely high quality player in terms of its image quality. So to wrap this video up, I just want to say this is an endgame level player for me. And it's basically like having an Oppo BDP 105, which is an extremely highly coveted player for your home theater, even today in 2025, at a fraction of the cost. Now, I got extremely lucky with finding this on Shop Goodwill because I don't think a lot of people knew what it was. And so there was only a handful of bids on the item. Granted, it was priced up to begin with. It didn't start extremely low. It was already, I think, like $50 or $60 on the starting bid. When I got it for $125, that's a really good deal for one of these because, like I said, even nowadays, you find these on the secondhand market for like at least double that price if they're in working condition. And so I would highly recommend looking for these. This is another kind of like unknown or very marginally known player that maybe gets lost on a lot of people because even as I said at the start of the video, I did not know that this player existed or that Cambridge Audio made Blu-ray players. I thought they were more strictly like AVRs and maybe like CD players or cassette decks or something. I didn't think that they actually ventured into Blu-ray players. So it might be a little bit of an unknown, a little bit of kind of like something out of the ordinary for most people, but this is an extremely high quality Blu-ray player. And so with that, that's going to wrap up this next video in my Journey to Endgame series. This is an endgame level player for me. This is a player that I use as my daily driver for basically everything up until you get to 4K. And then I use my Panasonic UB420. So definitely leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you've actually heard of this Cambridge Audio player or any of their Blu-ray players because they have some older models than this one. Before seeing this video, let me know if you've heard of them. Let me know if you've actually owned one of them, or let me know if you've owned one of the Oppo players because I do know those are still highly sought after in the community. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye and I'm going to say thank you like I always do. I really do appreciate all the support, all the views, all the comments, all the subscribers that I have on my channel. I really do appreciate all you guys. It definitely makes it worthwhile to keep putting out content on here and seeing all the positive feedback from everyone. And so I'm going to say goodbye and I will see you the next time in the next video right here on Secondhand Home Theater. Thank you.